The great hall of the Galactic Tribunal stretched higher than any cathedral on Earth. Jake Collins stood at his post near the defendant's platform, his eyes scanning the massive chamber filled with beings from across the galaxy. The air hummed with tension as hundreds of alien delegates whispered in languages he could not understand. Jake was just a security guard, nothing special by most standards. He wore the simple gray uniform of tribunal security, his human frame looking small, next to the towering alien guards stationed around the chamber. Most of the other species barely noticed him. To them, humans were the newcomers, the weak ones who had only joined the Galactic Council 50 years ago. At the center of it all sat Ambassador Lisa Martinez, humanity's representative on trial for crimes against the Sacred Neutrality Accord. She sat straight in her chair, her dark hair pulled back neatly, her face calm despite the serious charges against her. Jake had been assigned to her security detail for 3 months now, and he had never seen her lose her composure. The prosecution claimed she had given weapons technology to the HFY rebels, a group fighting against the Council's authority in the Outer Rim systems. If found guilty, she would face exile, and humanity might lose its seat on the Council forever. Jake knew the ambassador well enough to know she would never do such a thing, but the evidence against her looked damning. High Judge Mordock, a massive creature with blue-scaled skin and 4 arms, called the session to order. His voice boomed across the chamber without need for amplification. Around him sat the other judges, representing different species from across the galaxy. There was the crystalline Vorthik, whose body caught and reflected light in rainbow patterns. The gaseous ethereal, whose form shifted like smoke in a bottle. And others Jake had learned to recognize during his time here. The lead prosecutor, Counselor Zelmoth of the Zephyrian Hive, rose to present the case. Her insect-like form clicked and buzzed as she spoke, the translation devices converting her words into the common galactic language. She displayed holographic evidence showing weapon shipments with Lisa's authorization codes, communication records between the ambassador and known rebel leaders, and financial transfers from human accounts to HFY operatives. Jake watched from his position as each piece of evidence was presented. The other alien guards remained perfectly still. Their training focused on watching for physical threats. But Jake found himself studying the details, the way the evidence was presented, the timing of events. Something felt wrong about it all, though he could not put his finger on what. Lisa's defense attorney, a human lawyer named Ben Carter, did his best to challenge the evidence, but the prosecution's case seemed airtight. The weapons technology in question was clearly human in origin, developed by Earth's Military Research Division. The communication records showed conversations about supporting the cause of freedom and providing necessary assistance. The financial records traced directly back to accounts Lisa had access to in her official capacity. As the day wore on, Jake noticed things the others missed. He saw how some of the alien delegates exchanged glances when certain evidence was presented. He observed the way Counselor Veltar, a prominent ethereal diplomat, seemed particularly interested in the proceedings. Leaning forward whenever Lisa spoke in her own defense, the ambassador maintained her innocence throughout the testimony. She explained that the weapons technology had been stolen from human databases, not freely given. She claimed the communications were taken out of context and doctored to sound incriminating. She insisted the financial transfers were made without her knowledge or consent, suggesting someone with high-level access had used her credentials. But the judges seemed skeptical. Human technology was still relatively primitive compared to most galactic civilizations, and the idea that someone could steal such advanced weapons plans from human databases without detection seemed unlikely to them. The financial evidence was particularly damaging, as it showed a pattern of transfers over several months, not a single unauthorized transaction. Jake noticed Ambassador Martinez growing paler as the day progressed. At first, he thought it was just the stress of the trial, that something about her appearance concerned him. She was trying to hide it, but he could see she was struggling to concentrate on the proceedings. During a brief recess, Jake approached Lisa as she conferred with her attorney. "Ma'am, are you feeling all right?" he asked quietly. Lisa looked up at him with tired eyes. "Just the weight of everything, Jake. I'm fine." But Jake could see she was not fine. There was something wrong. Something beyond the normal stress of facing such serious charges. Her hands trembled slightly as she reached for her water glass, and there was a sheen of perspiration on her forehead, despite the cool temperature of the chamber. When the session resumed, the prosecution called their final witness, a Kethvar, defector who claimed to have personally received weapons from Lisa during a secret meeting on a neutral station. The alien's testimony was devastating, providing specific details about the meeting, the weapons transferred, and Lisa's promises of continued support for the rebellion. Jake watched Lisa's face as the testimony proceeded. Her expression remained controlled, but he could see the strain was taking its toll. Her breathing seemed labored, and she gripped the arms of her chair tightly. The defense's cross-examination of the witness raised some doubts about his credibility, but the damage was done. As closing arguments began, it seemed clear that the tribunal was prepared to find Lisa guilty. The fate of humanity's place in the galactic community hung in the balance, and everything depended on what happened next in this vast chamber filled with alien justice. The closing arguments had just begun when it happened. Lisa Martinez was rising to make her final statement to the tribunal when she suddenly stopped mid-motion. Her face went white, and she grabbed at her throat with both hands. Jake saw her eyes widen in fear before her knees buckled, and she collapsed to the floor. The ambassador's body hit the metal platform with a dull thud that echoed through the suddenly silent chamber. Then she began to convulse violently, her back arching as tremors shook her entire frame. Her breathing came in short, desperate gasps, and foam appeared at the corners of her mouth. Jake was the first to reach her. His basic medical training from his military days kicked in as he dropped to his knees beside Lisa. He checked her pulse, which was racing erratically, and tilted her head back to keep her airway clear. Her skin felt cold and clammy under his hands. The alien medical team rushed forward with their advanced scanners and equipment. Dr. Yithaval, the tribunal's Zephyrian chief medical officer, ran a handheld device over Lisa's body while chittering rapidly in her native language. The device beeped and flashed, displaying readings on its small screen. "The readings are inconsistent," Dr. Yithaval announced to the chamber. "My scanner indicates severe neural toxicity, but the specific toxin is unidentifiable." Dr. Morthan, an ethereal physician whose gaseous form shifted nervously, floated closer with his own diagnostic equipment. His scanner produced completely different results. "My instruments detect no toxins at all," he said in his whispering voice. "The symptoms suggest a rare neurological disorder affecting the human nervous system." A third medic, Dr. Keflin from the crystalline Vorthic species, added his own conflicting diagnosis. "My analysis shows signs of severe allergic reaction to an unknown substance. However, the biochemical markers do not match any known allergens in our databases." Jake listened to the chaos of conflicting medical opinions while keeping his hands on Lisa's shoulders to prevent her from injuring herself during the convulsions. Each alien species had evolved different sensory capabilities, and their medical equipment was designed around their own biology. What was obvious to one species might be invisible to another. The prosecution immediately seized on the situation. Counselor Zelmuth buzzed loudly above the medical commotion. "This is clearly a desperate attempt to gain sympathy from the tribunal. The defendant has staged this collapse to avoid facing justice for her crimes." Defense attorney Ben Carter pushed forward angrily. "How dare you suggest the ambassador would fake a medical emergency?" Can't you see she's seriously ill? High Judge Murdoch raised one of his forearms for silence. The medical situation must be addressed before we can continue. However, the timing of this incident raises questions about its authenticity. Jake found himself growing frustrated with the arguing while Lisa continued to suffer. The alien medics were so focused on their technological readings that they were missing basic observational details. He noticed that Lisa's convulsions followed an unusual pattern, too regular and controlled for a typical seizure. Her pupils were dilated but reactive, and despite the apparent severity of her symptoms, her vital signs remained relatively stable. Something's not right here, Jake said quietly to Ben Carter. This doesn't look like any medical condition I've seen before. The defense attorney was too focused on the legal implications to pay attention to Jake's concerns. We need to get her to a proper medical facility immediately. This trial needs to be postponed until she recovers. Dr. Yithaval was preparing to transport Lisa to the Alien Medical Center when Jake noticed something the others had missed. As he helped lift her onto the medical gurney, he saw a tiny mark on her neck, just below her left ear. It was so small that only someone looking closely would notice it, barely visible as a red dot against her skin. Jake's human eyes, evolved for pattern recognition and detail observation, picked up what the alien scanners had overlooked. The mark looked like a needle puncture, fresh and slightly swollen. He started to mention it to the medical team, but stopped himself. If Lisa had been deliberately poisoned, pointing it out now might put her in more danger. The medical team prepared to wheel Lisa away to their facility. Jake knew that once she left the tribunal chamber, she would be completely at the mercy of alien medical procedures that might not be compatible with human biology. Worse, if someone had indeed poisoned her, they might have allies among the medical staff. Wait, Jake said, stepping forward. As her assigned security officer, I should accompany the ambassador to ensure her safety. Dr. Yuthaval's compound. Eyes focused on him with irritation. Human, your primitive medical knowledge would only interfere with our advanced treatment procedures. The ambassador will receive the best care possible from qualified professionals. Jake persisted. I'm not here as a medic. I'm here for security. If this is some kind of attack on the ambassador, she needs protection. High Judge Murdoch considered this. The security officer makes a valid point. If there are concerns about the ambassador's safety, proper protection should be maintained. While the officials debated, Jake took another close look at Lisa. Her convulsions were beginning to subside, but she remained unconscious. The timing of her collapse bothered him more than he could explain. It had happened at the exact moment when she was about to give her final defense, at the most crucial point of the trial. Counselor Veltar, the ethereal diplomat who had been watching the proceedings so intently, drifted closer to the medical team. Perhaps it would be best to postpone the trial indefinitely until the ambassador's condition can be properly evaluated. Such a serious medical emergency clearly indicates that humans may not be physically capable of handling the stress of galactic politics. Jake's instincts told him there was something wrong with that suggestion. Veltar seemed too eager to use Lisa's collapse as evidence of human weakness. The comment felt calculated, as if the ethereal had been waiting for exactly this opportunity. As the medical team finally wheeled Lisa away, Jake made a decision. He would follow his human instincts and investigate what really happened, even if it meant going against the advanced alien authorities. Something about this whole situation felt like a setup, and he was determined to find out the truth before it was too late for both Lisa and humanity's future in the galactic community. Jake knew he was breaking protocol by starting his own investigation, but something deep in his gut told him that Lisa's collapse was not natural. While the alien medical team worked on the ambassador in their sterile facility, Jake returned to the tribunal chamber to look for clues that their advanced scanners might have missed. The chamber was mostly empty now, with only a few maintenance workers cleaning up after the day's dramatic events. Jake walked slowly around the defendant's platform, studying every detail with his human eyes. The alien security systems had recorded everything, but they were programmed to look for weapons and obvious threats, not subtle signs of foul play. Jake remembered seeing Counselor Veltar approach Lisa just before the trial began. At the time, it had seemed like a normal diplomatic greeting, but now it felt suspicious. Jake accessed the security footage from his guard terminal, rewinding to the moments before the session started. There it was on the screen. Veltar had drifted over to Lisa while she was reviewing her notes. The ethereal's gaseous form had surrounded her briefly, like a cloud of smoke, while they exchanged what appeared to be polite conversation. The interaction lasted only 30 seconds, but Jake noticed something the automated systems had ignored as irrelevant. During their conversation, Veltar had gestured toward Lisa's neck with one of his tendril-like appendages. To the alien security systems, it looked like a friendly touch, the kind of casual contact that occurred constantly during diplomatic interactions. But Jake's human pattern recognition saw something different. The gesture was too precise, too purposeful. Jake enhanced the footage as much as his terminal would allow. The image quality was not perfect, but he could see Veltar's tendril make contact with Lisa's neck in exactly the spot where Jake had noticed the small puncture mark. It lasted only a fraction of a second, but it was definitely deliberate contact. His next step was to examine Lisa's quarters. As her security officer, Jake had access to her diplomatic suite in the tribunal complex. He used his credentials to enter her rooms, knowing that if he was wrong about his suspicions, this unauthorized search could end his career. Lisa's quarters were neat and organized, exactly as Jake expected. Her personal belongings were minimal, as befitted someone focused entirely on her diplomatic duties. Jake searched methodically, looking for anything that seemed out of place or unusual. In the small kitchen area, Jake found what he was looking for. A half-empty cup of tea sat on the counter, still warm. Lisa had apparently been drinking it just before the trial began. Jake lifted the cup to his nose and inhaled carefully. Most humans would not have noticed anything unusual about the tea's scent, but Jake had grown up in rural Montana, where his grandmother had taught him to identify plants and herbs. Mixed with the normal aroma of the herbal tea was something else, something that reminded him of the oleander bushes that grew wild near his childhood home. Oleander was beautiful but deadly, containing toxins that could cause exactly the symptoms Lisa had displayed: convulsions, difficulty breathing, irregular heartbeat, and eventual collapse. Jake's grandmother had warned him repeatedly about the plant's dangers, telling him stories of livestock that had died from eating its leaves. Problem was that oleander was an earth plant. The alien databases would have no record of it, and their medical scanners would not recognize its toxins. To most alien species, oleander compounds might be completely harmless, which would explain why their tests showed conflicting results. Jake carefully sealed the teacup in a containment bag from his security kit. He would need to have it analyzed by human medical equipment, but that presented another problem. The tribunal complex had no human medical facilities, and sending the sample to Earth would take too long. As Jake continued searching Lisa's quarters, he began to piece together a larger picture. This was not just about removing one human ambassador from the galactic scene. Someone wanted to demonstrate that humans were too weak and unstable to participate in galactic politics at all. Jake found Lisa's personal communication device and accessed her recent messages. Most were routine diplomatic correspondence, but he noticed something interesting in the pattern of her appointments over the past week. She had met with representatives from several different alien species, all of whom had expressed concerns about humanity's rapid advancement in technology and politics. The Zephyrians were worried about human military capabilities. The Vorthik were concerned about human economic expansion. The Ethereals feared human influence on younger civilizations. Each species had different reasons to want humanity removed from the Galactic Council, but they all shared the same basic fear of human potential. Jake realized he was looking at a conspiracy that went far beyond Counselor Vel-Tar. Multiple alien species were working together to frame Lisa and discredit humanity. The weapons technology allegedly given to the Kethful rebels, the forged communications, the suspicious financial transfers, all of it was part of an elaborate setup designed to make humans look like dangerous and untrustworthy partners. The poisoning of Lisa was meant to be the final piece of evidence. Her collapse under pressure would be presented as proof that humans could not handle the stress of galactic responsibility. Even if she recovered, the incident would be used to argue that humans were physically and mentally unsuited for important diplomatic roles. Jake knew he was in over his head, but he also knew he was the only one who could see the truth. The alien authorities were too focused on their advanced technology and complex political considerations to notice the simple, obvious clues that any human detective would have spotted immediately. He needed proof that would convince the tribunal, but he also needed to be careful. If the conspirators realized he was getting close to the truth, they might try to silence him permanently. Jake was just one human security guard against a conspiracy involving some of the most powerful species in the galaxy. But Jake had advantages the conspirators did not expect: human stubbornness, human intuition, and the human ability to see patterns that more logical minds might miss. He was going to find the evidence he needed, and he was going to save both Lisa and humanity's place in the galactic community, no matter what it cost him personally. Jake spent the night analyzing everything he had discovered, knowing that time was running out. The tribunal would reconvene in the morning to deliver its verdict, and without concrete proof of the conspiracy, Lisa would be found guilty and humanity would lose its place in the galactic community forever. He had the contaminated T sample, the security footage showing Vel-Tar's suspicious contact with Lisa, and the pattern of meetings that suggested a coordinated effort against humanity. But he needed more than circumstantial evidence to convince a tribunal of alien judges who already seemed predisposed to believe the worst about humans. Jake decided to take a risk. Using his security access, he began monitoring communications between the suspected conspirators. Most diplomatic channels were encrypted beyond his ability to decode, but Jake had learned that criminals often got careless when they thought they were winning. His patience was rewarded near dawn when he intercepted a brief exchange between Counselor Vel-Tar and Dr. Yithavel, the Zephyrian medical officer who had examined Lisa. They were using an older, less secure communication protocol, apparently confident that no one would be monitoring their conversation. "The human female is recovering faster than expected," Dr. Yithavel buzzed in the Zephyrian language. Jake's translation device converted her words into standard galactic speech. "Her primitive physiology is more resistant to the compound than our calculations predicted." Vel-Tar's response was barely a whisper in his gaseous language. "No matter. The damage to human credibility is already done. The tribunal will vote to expel them this morning, and our arrangement will be complete." "What about the security guard?" Dr. Yithavel asked. "He has been asking too many questions about the ambassador's treatment." "One insignificant human cannot threaten our alliance," Vel-Tar replied. "By the time he understands what happened, it will be too late to matter." Jake felt his blood run cold as he realized the full scope of what he was facing. This was not just about framing Lisa for the weapons charges. The conspirators had planned every detail, from the fabricated evidence to the poisoning, as part of a coordinated effort to remove humanity from galactic politics permanently. But the intercepted conversation also gave Jake the proof he needed. The conspirators had admitted to poisoning Lisa with a compound specifically chosen to affect human physiology. They had revealed that their goal was humanity's expulsion from the tribunal. Most importantly, they had confirmed that multiple species were working together in this conspiracy. Jake knew he needed to act quickly before the conspirators realized their communications had been compromised. He copied all the evidence he had gathered onto a secure data crystal and prepared to present it to the tribunal. But first, he needed to check on Lisa's condition. The alien medical facility was heavily guarded, but Jake's security credentials allowed him access to the recovery ward. He found Lisa awake but weak, connected to various monitoring devices that the alien doctors insisted were necessary for her treatment. "Jake," Lisa said weakly when she saw him. "What happened to me?" "The doctors won't tell me anything concrete. Just that I had some kind of severe reaction." Jake looked around to make sure they were not being overheard, then leaned close to Lisa's bed. "Ambassador, I believe you were deliberately poisoned with an earth plant toxin called oleander. The alien medical equipment can't detect it because it's not in their databases." Lisa's eyes widened with understanding. "That would explain why. Their treatments aren't working very well. My body is fighting off the poison naturally, but they keep trying to treat symptoms of diseases I don't have." Jake quickly explained his investigation and the evidence he had uncovered. Lisa listened intently despite her weakened condition, her diplomatic mind immediately grasping the implications of what Jake had discovered. "We need to get this information to the tribunal before they vote," Lisa said, trying to sit up in her bed. "But they won't listen to testimony from a human security guard without official support." Jake had been thinking about the same problem. The tribunal operated on strict protocols and hierarchies. His evidence would be dismissed as the desperate claims of a subordinate trying to help his superior avoid punishment. He needed someone with authority to present his findings. "What about Ben Carter?" Jake asked. "As your defense attorney, he has the right to present new evidence." Lisa shook her head weakly. "Ben is a good lawyer, but he thinks like a lawyer. He'll want to verify everything through official channels. If expert testimony, build a proper legal case. We don't have time for that." Jake realized they were going to have to take matters into their own hands. "Ambassador, can you make it to the tribunal chamber if I help you?" "I think so," Lisa said, though Jake could see the effort it took for her to even sit up. "What are you planning?" "I'm going to present the evidence myself, protocol or no protocol." Jake said, "If they want to dismiss it because I'm just a security guard, that's their choice. But they're going to hear the truth first." Lisa managed a weak smile. "Jake, if you do this, you'll probably lose your job. The tribunal doesn't appreciate being told they've been fooled by their own members." Jake shrugged. "Ma'am, if I don't do this, we'll all lose a lot more than jobs. Humanity's future in the galaxy is at stake." Together, they began planning how to expose the conspiracy. Jake would need to get into the tribunal chamber without being stopped by security, present his evidence in a way that would be compelling to alien minds, and do it all while the conspirators were present and trying to stop him not. It was a desperate plan with little chance of success, but it was their only option. Jake gathered his evidence and prepared to bet everything on his ability to convince a tribunal of alien judges that a simple human security guard had uncovered a conspiracy that their advanced systems had missed completely. The tribunal chamber was packed when Jake helped Lisa walk slowly to her seat at the defendant's platform. The alien delegates buzzed with surprise at seeing the ambassador present despite her medical condition. High Judge Murdoch called for order as the session began. "We are here to render judgment in the case against Ambassador Lisa Martinez," the judge announced in his booming voice. "However, before we proceed, the defendant appears to have returned against medical advice." Counselor Zelmuth, the prosecuting attorney, rose immediately. "Your Honor, this is clearly another attempt to manipulate the tribunal's sympathies. The defendant should not be present in her obviously compromised condition. Lisa stood slowly, supported by Jake's steady hand on her arm. Your Honor, I request permission to present new evidence that has come to light regarding my case. Objection, Zelmuth buzzed loudly. The time for presenting evidence has passed. We are here only to receive the tribunal's verdict. High Judge. Mordak considered this for a moment. The defendant may speak briefly, but no new evidence will be formally accepted at this stage of proceedings. Jake knew this was their only chance. He stepped forward, his human voice carrying clearly through the chamber, despite its relatively quiet tone compared to the alien speakers. Your Honor, I am Security Officer Jake Collins, assigned to Ambassador Martinez's protection detail. I have discovered evidence of a conspiracy to frame the ambassador and remove humanity from the Galactic Council. The chamber erupted in shocked murmurs and alien vocalizations. Counselor Veltar's gaseous form rippled with what might have been agitation, while Dr. Yithaval's compound eyes fixed on Jake with obvious hostility. This is outrageous, Veltar whispered in his ethereal voice. A mere security guard cannot address this tribunal without proper authorization. But Jake had already begun presenting his evidence. He activated a holographic display showing the security footage of Veltar's interaction with Lisa before the trial began. This footage shows Counselor Veltar making deliberate contact with Ambassador Martinez's neck, at the exact location where I later observed a puncture wound. The judges leaned forward to examine the footage more closely. Jake enhanced the image to show the precise moment of contact, demonstrating how Veltar's tendril had touched Lisa's neck with suspicious accuracy. Furthermore, Jake continued, producing the sealed T sample, I found traces of oleander toxin in the ambassador's quarters. Oleander is an earth plant whose compounds are deadly to humans but undetectable by alien medical equipment, because the plant does not exist in your databases. Dr. Yithaval chittered angrily. This is pure speculation. Human medical knowledge is primitive compared to our advanced diagnostic capabilities. Jake had anticipated this response. He activated his personal communication device and played the intercepted conversation between Dr. Yithaval and Counselor Veltar. The chamber fell silent as the conspirators' own words filled the air, admitting to poisoning Lisa and planning humanity's expulsion from the tribunal. The compound we used was specifically chosen to affect human physiology, came Dr. Yithaval's recorded voice. The damage to human credibility is already done. Veltar's response followed immediately. Our arrangement will be complete once the tribunal votes to expel them. The silence that followed was deafening. High Judge Mordek's forearms tensed as he processed what he had heard. The other judges exchanged glances that needed no translation across species barriers. Jake pressed his advantage. The weapons technology allegedly given to the Kethver rebels was stolen by these conspirators to frame Ambassador Martinez. The communications were doctored, and the financial transfers were made using stolen credentials. This entire case is built on fabricated evidence designed to make humanity appear untrustworthy. Counselor Zelmuth tried desperately to salvage the situation. These recordings could easily be fabricated. We cannot accept the word of a human security guard against respected members of this tribunal. But Jake had saved his most compelling evidence for last. He displayed a comprehensive analysis showing the pattern of meetings between Lisa and various alien representatives, the timing of the fabricated evidence, and the coordination required to execute such an elaborate conspiracy. The beauty of this plan was its simplicity, Jake explained in his straightforward human manner. Each piece of evidence seemed authentic when examined separately. The weapons technology was genuinely human in origin because it was stolen from our databases. The communications seemed real because they were based on actual conversations taken out of context. The financial transfers used legitimate accounts because the conspirators had insider access. Jake turned to face the accused conspirators directly, but they made one critical mistake. They assumed that human security procedures would be as ineffective as they believed human capabilities to be. They never expected that a simple human guard would notice details that their advanced systems missed. Lisa found the strength to stand and address the tribunal. Your Honors, this conspiracy reveals something important about humanity's place in the galactic community. We may not have the most advanced technology or the most sophisticated political systems, but we bring unique perspectives and capabilities that complement the strengths of other species. High Judge Mordock raised one of his arms for silence. Counselor Veltar and Dr. Yithoval, how do you respond to these accusations? The conspirators attempted to deny everything, but their recorded voices had already condemned them. Additional investigation quickly revealed the full scope of the conspiracy, implicating several other species who had feared humanity's rapid advancement. The tribunal's verdict was swift and decisive. All charges against Ambassador Martinez were dropped. The conspirators were arrested and charged with crimes against galactic justice. Most importantly, humanity's membership in the Galactic Council was not only confirmed, but strengthened by recognition of their unique investigative capabilities. In the weeks that followed, Jake was offered positions in galactic intelligence and various diplomatic security roles. He politely declined them all, preferring to remain a simple security guard. After all, someone needed to keep watching for the details that others might miss. Lisa recovered fully from her poisoning and returned to her diplomatic duties with new respect from her alien colleagues. The incident had demonstrated that humanity's strength lay not in superior technology or overwhelming force, but in their ability to see truth clearly and act courageously when justice was at stake. Jake continued his quiet work, knowing that in a galaxy full of advanced civilizations and complex politics, there would always be a need for someone who could spot the simple, obvious truths that sophisticated minds might overlook.